My name is Parker.
And my name is Nate.
And this is The Force Unlimited, yet another Star Wars Unlimited podcast. This is episode number 26. We are recording on December 15th, and we are recording our special Christmas episode, Hanukkah episode, holiday episode, to the extent that we do things like that. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the holidays. We're going to talk a little bit about PAX Unplugged. But first we're going to talk about the matches that we just played. Ned, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was playing GI Blue, and Parker was playing Cad Bane Red, specifically the Tarkintown variant. I mean, I think one of the good things that came out of the Boba Fett banning is that a lot of other leaders kind of got unbanned, as happens when like a dominant card gets banned. And for people who aren't familiar with the lingo, you weren't actually banned. There was just not a reason to play them, right? Like Cad Bane was just a.
Can you remind us who Cad Bane is, Ned? The card.
Oh, right.
For those who aren't familiar.
No. So Cad Bane is a leader that deploys on 6. They're a villainy yellow leader. They have the ability that when you play a card with the Underworld tag, you can exhaust Cad Bane, and then that will deal 1 damage to a unit of your opponent's choice. On the flip side, they are a 2/8 with Raid 2, and that same ability, but for 2 damage instead of for 1. Okay.
Yeah. So I was playing Cad, and I was really high on Cad in Shadows at first. Yeah. I mean, I ended up playing a lot of him in pre-releases, and he's an amazing limited leader in Shadows. But there are technically villainy yellow decks where you had a genuine discussion of why not Boba, but even like if you went really hard on say Tarkin space, you still Boba was pretty compelling.
It's.
So I'm back on Cad Bane, and now that he's essentially unbanned, and I'm enjoying him immensely. I think he's my go-to. I think I'm going to be taking him to PQ. How did we do, Ned? We all know who you played.
So we went 1-1. So game 1, you were able to kind of keep me. This is kind of a traditional more mid-rangey versus a more aggro deck. Is you kind of sat on me in game 1. And then I was able to kind of wriggle out from under you on the 4 resource turn, thanks to Sonara-san. And then it was just as soon as I got out from under you, because of the way that GI deals damage, it was just whack after whack of damage, closing the door pretty quickly.
Yeah. It was unpleasant, but it definitely, that one, I feel like there might have been a misplay or two, but mostly I feel like I was drawing the wrong cards for the matchup. I don't want to say I ran out of gas. My curve was fine, but not having any waylays, but not having enough cartel spacer. Game 2, I think I'm not drawing McClunky in game 1, whereas getting all 3 of my McClunkies in game 2. And McClunky cartel spacer, because when you're spending your turn to ready, cartel spacer just then exhausting was not fun for you.
Yeah, so game 2 was kind of the opposite, where you started sitting on me and I just never got out. So, McClunky is a really brutal play against GI. GI is you are trading hit points for tempo, and when you can answer units with very inexpensive cards like McClunky, waylaying my big 5-cost units.
Raid helps.
Daring Raid helped. Yeah, there were a couple of times that I might have been able to kind of squeak out. Then, there was the one time that you slightly miscalculated and I was able to get that 7-power readied devastating gunship, but then you drew Daring Raid, and, it went
Playing Cad Bane makes me really angry about the state of green leaders, especially hero green leaders currently, because Cad Bane is a trait-based leader. But the Underworld trait is definitely heaviest in Shadows, but it is by no means a Shadows only keyword.
No, I mean there's scum throughout time and across space.
I mean the unbanned Boba, the unbanned villainy Boba is Underworld, right? The Greedo is Underworld. There's a lot of compelling Spark of Rebellion cards in the deck, and I mean Cartel Spacer and Crafty Smuggler, Jabba the Hutt, there's a lot of good Underworld already.
Good cards.
And so when you have a leader who will play good cards that were in Boba decks, cards that are in Django decks, cards that are really in any villainy or villainy, any yellow or villainy yellow deck, getting rewarded for playing them feels good.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, you're leaning, okay, so maybe you're going to run Bosk and Zuckuss and Forlom, and maybe you wouldn't otherwise run that entire package because that's you know,
that's a lot of beef in the
that's a lot of beef in that in that curve. Admittedly, they could in theory all have ambush, so you are probably doing something with a lot of it when it plays. But you're pretty much, you know, running everything that excuse me, you would, and so it feels good. And you compare it to Leia. You compare it to Padme, where there aren't actually enough like commanding, compelling, no pun intended, commanding cards that are in green, in command, that are rebels or republics, that you would run a deck that is 60% rebel already with another leader, where you can swap in Leia and take advantage of that keyword. There aren't enough republic keywords, you know, that you would run that. So you're left essentially with, well, I have to put these mediocre cards in to make this leader work, and then you have a deck full of mediocre cards. And it's true across pretty much the entire spectrum of green leaders. They're all, so many of them are trait based, and it just kills me that the one good trait based leader, the really compelling one, is in villainy yellow.
I mean, so typal strategies are hard, right? Like, you know, the point of enabling typal strategies is that they help players, and again, I might be like going up on the Ned game design soapbox here, but like typal strategies.
Always. That's why the 11 people listening right now are here, Ned. So
hot damn. All right. But like from a design point of view, like typal strategies build themselves to a certain extent, right? Like when you are a new player and you are looking at a deck and you're trying to figure out, the easiest way to figure out how to build a deck is either there is a specific combination of cards that I want to play, or more frequently, like there is a class of cards, like, and typal is a very easy way to do it, is you say, okay, I'm going to play all of my, I like rebels, so I'm going to play all of my rebels, and then I'll put a typal leader on it. And then the problem, though, is that when you are playing a typal deck, you are, you know, essentially, if you imagine the value topography, the parts of the topography that you are playing on lower peaks, but the hope is that the synergy between the cards, and particularly when you have a leader, this design is like a payoff for a set of a synergy of cards, that synergy is going to carry you through. But, you know, to the point that you said, you're generally playing cards that are worse than their replacements because they have a type, right? But Cad Bane has kind of two advantages, and number one, there's a bunch of underworld cards that you would just play because they're good, right? And I think that Tarkin, to a certain extent, you also, like, there's a bunch of Imperial cards that you just play because they're good, right? Like, you play 7th Fleet Defender because it's good. You play King TIE Phantom because it's good. You play, you know...
But it goes to show that the valid, viable Tarkin is also in yellow, right? Like,
right. But that's the point, is that, like, in typal decks that tend to do well, it's that the individual cards are good, and then you're also getting a bonus, right? Like, you are adding that extra soupçon of value on top of it, and, you know, but part of the problem is that Tarkin's value, it's good, but it also costs you resources, right? Like, one of the big advantages of Cad Bane's ability is that it's literally free.
Well, and what I love about it is Cad Bane's ability is really the anti-coordinate, right? So, you know, the big criticism of coordinate is that while it is a good card, you know, it's good in theory, you know, as soon as coordinate came out, people, you know, the people who were better than us started asking the question, how often does your opponent have, you know, or do you have 3 units on the board? Which is frequently not often. And and Cad Bane's ability, you know, similar to like Power of the Dark Side, the fewer cards your opponent has on the board, the better Cad Bane is. Tonight, every game, I was at locals just the other night, every game, like if your opponent only has 1, there's no choice, right? Like Cad Bane's ability is better than like pretty much any other ping damage because you don't get a choice, right? Like
Right.
play a card that you know, if you're playing a Cad Bane deck, basically every card in your deck is an Underworld. And so play a card and then immediately, not as an action, immediately for free do 1 damage is, you know, offset by a choice. But if there's no choice, then there's no offset, right? Compared to like Vader, where you've got to spend a resource in action. Even though you're like likely to hit villainy at this point, the card pool is saturated enough that you're probably running villainy parallel. You know, you're not running very many mono aspect red or whatever color you're matching with Vader. And you know, you look at like Quinlan, right? Like that ping, you've got to, I mean, like think about the jump you've got to do. You've got to play a card that matches the cost of your opponent, which, I mean, happens. But if your opponent only has 1 unit, there's no offset to Cad's like casual trigger. So it just makes me angry because all the rest of them are worse. All the green trait type of leaders are just not particularly good.
I mean, I think that if, you know, I want to make up for this, I think that if I'm going to be designing type of leaders in the future, I'm not, but like if I were, I think one of the things is you need to get the payout, and you need to get the payout without having to jump through extra hoops, right? Like
Well,
you're
and
already jumping through. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like Leia would be good if we hadn't had 2 sets with almost no Rebel cards. There's only like 4 or 5 Rebel cards in sets 2 and 3. So Leia was almost there when we were in a set 1 meta. She was almost, but not quite to Sabine level. Like you wanted to run hero aggros, Leia was almost there. Meanwhile, Sabine's gotten gift after gift, right? Like Shadows is just like, here's all these fantastic cards.
Darksaber, you know, Poe for your upper end, Wrecker for goodness sake.
Right, exactly. And then Leia got nothing. And then you know, so I'm very curious. I'm at this point I'm too jaded to be hopeful because I was hopeful in set 2 and I was hopeful in set 3. I saw Coordinate and I was like, the time for elves has come. I want to play elves again and remind myself of my 20s. And it didn't happen. There's a part of me that says, you know, if the theme is space for Jump to Lightspeed, then hopefully the types are everything we've already seen.
Yeah.
But in space. And then now is the time for a whole bunch of Rebel ships in space, right? And so now you can get to a window where Leia might get enough support, you know, because Leia's abilities actually doesn't cost resources. You're already at, you know, just attack for 2, right, is something you want to do. But I love playing Cad. He's super fun. And I think, as competitive as he may be, the value to players who are not as good, like me, should not be underestimated in that Cad offloads decision space to the opponent and is balanced around that. If you have 2 units out, like, yes, you can get into that ordered effect of I know that you know that I know. So, okay, so what I know, and you're going to target the damage here, so should I do it? So then you're going to target the damage there, so you know it, so you're going to target, you know, you can get into that, and you should get into that. But if you're tired and just feeling dumb, as I often am, you can just play your card knowing that it's going to do damage and let your opponent spend that mental energy figuring out the optimal, you know, damage assignment. So for me, Cad is great because in the same way that Han 2 was my favorite in set 2 because he was great at losing, he was really fun to lose with, Cad Bane's really fun if you're tired. You just play good cards and ping chip damage happens and you don't even have to assign it. Like literally you just do what you're going to do and do it. So all right, Ned, before the show, because you and I are good, close friends, we caught up, and yet there is a gaping hole in our catch-up because I did not ask you about your trip to Pennsylvania because I wanted to save all of that energy for the show. So, Ned, tell us about your trip to Pennsylvania.
So I went to Philadelphia, and for people who want deep Ned lore, I actually spent many years of my life in Philadelphia, so it was nice to kind of return. I got to hang out in the environs of the Philadelphia Convention Center.
Did you go to some John's?
I did. I didn't go to a Wawa. I had meant to go to a Wawa, but like I don't know, man, effort.
Ned, it astounds me that, and I apologize for calling you out publicly in a podcast, but I don't understand how you are both. I'm gonna say it, Ned, because I love you, and I'm gonna preface with my saying that I love you, but you're a little cheap. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
But you're also and many people are cheap. I can be cheap, but also I can be lazy sometimes. But you can't be both. And I'm astounded at sometimes your willingness to be both. Of like, I can't spend the effort to go to a Wawa.
I am willing to be both cheap and lazy.
Right? Yeah. It absolutely astounds me. I adore it. But anyways, but it doesn't compute. So tell me.
So I went to PAX Unplugged.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was about to say. So tell me why you went to Philadelphia as opposed to just
Well, to catch up with some of my friends, but also to go to PAX Unplugged.
PAX Unplugged.
I was primarily there this time in my role as an amateur board game designer, and that went reasonably well. I got to shake hands with Cole Worley and pitch my game at him, and he told me that probably no, but there are some other companies that might be interested, and you can use my name to pitch to them. And I said, okay.
It's a path of, the path to yes is paved with no's. So
110%.
Right,
so my Friday and my Sunday were kind of the board game design time, but my Saturday I carved out to do SWU. So
can I for those of you who don't follow me on Blue Sky, kind of highlight the A+ gold star communication Ned and I have. I vaguely knew that Ned was going to PAX Unplugged, and I was scrolling through my timeline, and I see the Force Unlimited logo on a playmat, and my immediate response is is somebody quoting something I posted, in the way back? Because if you don't similar that I dominate conversations verbally, I'm also the more active poster on the internet than Ned.
110%. I'm trying to get better as part of Operation
Force Unlimited, but
make people aware that I exist.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. If you're you got to ask more to get more no's to get to that. Yes.
Yes.
So
yes.
I see the playmat, the Force Unlimited playmat, and my immediate reaction is, who's quoting me? My immediate response is not Ned posting, and then Ned says, you're posting something along the lines of, today is SWU Day at PAX Unplugged. And I was like, oh, this weekend is PAX Unplugged. Okay, that makes sense that Ned went there, right? And and I thought we were gonna record the next night. Obviously not. I had plans with your wife and my son, or your wife and your son and my son, and it did not occur to me that those plans were created because you were out of town, and so that's the. I didn't know. So you had Saturday dedicated to the Force Unlimited, and I, as your co-host, did not know that you were flying across the country and that you had dedicated a day to this. So tell me about your Saturday. I'm glad you put in hard work on Friday and Sunday, and I'm glad you shook hands, and I can't wait until it pays dividends. But tell me about the Saturday.
So the Saturday, I spent a fair bit of time hanging around the Star Wars Unlimited booth. I got some games in. I got a tournament in. I got to hang out with Alicia and Xander and MJ. I got to hear that they actually listened to the podcast over there. MJ quoted some actual episode, text back at me, which was fun because they're...
The Quadrant Theory, right?
Yeah, Quadrant Theory, yeah. And, apparently I turned them on to that whole area of theory, card game design theory.
Deep corners of theory is our specialty, Ned. So,
yeah.
But, so deep that people who design the games maybe aren't 100% on them, which is, that's perfect for our brand. So,
yeah. Yeah, so it was nice. I tried both times. Well, not both times, but I tried Sunday and I tried Saturday both to do the Gunslinger event, but...
What's a Gunslinger event?
The Gunslinger event is the Play the Designer event. So Xander was running it once and MJ was running it once when I was there. But the line was long, and,
We've established that you're lazy.
Yeah, back to the cheap and lazy comment.
we lucked into being able to play Tyler at PAX West. Like, I think
Oh yeah.
we happened to walk in at like the exact. We were already there for the interview, and it was just segueing into. We're like, oh, we stand up from the interview. Hey, look at that! We're first in line for the thing in 20 minutes.
Remarkable, right? Yeah.
So didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I did not happen. That's fine. You know, I got my pin set.
Oh, so now you've got two.
No, I did not. No, so I already got. Meaning by that, I meant I already got my pin set, so I didn't need to get another.
Oh, okay.
Pin set.
Got yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And I played in the tournament. The tournament was interesting because I think that it kind of goes to show that people who are deep, and I think this is true wherever you are, but the deeper you are into something, the more you assume that the average person who plays it is similar to you. It's the like kind of a weak anthropic principle, I guess, where, you know, I had the assumption going into the tournament that I was going to be playing a bunch of like Sabines and Djangos and grinders. They call them hoagies in Philly.
Fair. That's good. Okay, so but let me tell you. Let me guess. It was jankier than you expected.
So janky, and it was such a breath of fresh air. I loved it.
Well, I mean, but it's also your competitive advantage. Like, being janky is your competitive advantage.
Right. No, that's exactly the problem, right? I brought GI Blue under the assumption that everybody's going to be teched for, like, really complicated, you know, either they're going to be deep on the aggro end, and I have answers to that, or they're going to be deep on the control end, and they've got answers to that. But, like, just mid-range value piles? Who brings that? Boba's dead. Mid-range value piles is gone.
Yeah. So, and then a question for you: was Asmodee running the tourney? Was it like a sanctioned tourney?
It was a sanctioned tourney. It was being run out of the booth. So this is different than how it was at PAX West. Where at PAX West, it was a local game store that had essentially like taken table space and was running tournaments. At PAX Unplugged, it was being run directly out of the Fantasy Flight Games booth, and my card was being charged by Fantasy Flight Games. And the way that they did it was that they had pods firing like all the time. So
that makes me mildly frustrated, I think is the appropriate word. I'm not angry, like it's more at the universe, not at Fantasy Flight. I don't think Fantasy Flight's done anything wrong, but if you consider the collector box, venues as the events that Fantasy Flight is paying attention enough to send Asmodee teams to sell these boxes, right, or to care about, right? Like, there's a level of care, and they've established these 5 venues. PAX West, I think, was the only one that basically, like, they existed there, right? Like, they were running the Learn to Play, but they weren't running the tourneys. Whereas at Gen Con and San Diego Comic-Con and at PAX Unplugged and at Spiel, they were run by Asmodee. And, you know, and PAX West was the kind of short end of the stick. Not mad at the FFG team or the Asmodee team for that. That's just how huge
logistics works.
Nobody
wants to go to the West Coast, Parker.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, clearly the second best convention on the West Coast after San Diego Comic-Con. So, you know, like, on the one hand, I should absolutely, you know, glass half full, they came to the Pacific Northwest at all. We only had to drive 3 hours. Glass half empty, like, you know, redheaded stepchild, right, of the conventions. And I'm allowed to say that as a redhead. So, you know, like, that's our word. So I feel like it's one of those, like, because it's not even, you know, PAX, right? It's the same parent organization. And admittedly, you know, Pennsylvania's closer to Minnesota than it is, or, you know, the Oregon is to Minnesota, but, you know, so
is
it?
Is it?
I don't know.
I feel like that you're pretty close to equidistant. Like, I remember driving.
No, I'll wager. You know what? I'm gonna look this up, Ned, because
all right.
I think people on the East Coast is denser, so people think it's the same. But we're gonna break.
There's a lot. There is a lot of Montana. Yeah.
There's a lot of Montana. So we'll say Minneapolis, right? That's where FFG is.
Yeah,
to Portland. Let's see. Directions. We're going to go. We don't normally Google on the show, so that's 1,700 miles. And if we change
Okay.
it out for Philadelphia, we're going to go with 1,100 miles. So it's about 600 miles. I mean,
of difference. Yeah, no, that's significant. That's significant.
I mean,
yeah.
on the one hand, significant. On the other hand, not as significant as I was hoping. I picture the East Coast is like this thin, where it's just, so I have the opposite problem that the East Coast has, so yeah, no, I understand and I respect why. It's mildly frustrating that we kind of got like, oh, Zulu's Board Gaming Cafe, which from everything I've heard is an amazing organization. I've talked to people who've talked, who are friends. The people who play there, I've heard good things. So like, no discredit to Zulus, but we get handed off to a good board gaming shop as opposed to, an Asmodee sanctioned tournament. So, anything else come out of PAX Unplugged before we dive into the meat of our episode, Ned?
I had some fun conversations about Set 4 with Xander, but I explicitly said that they were off the record, and I do not want to broach the seal of confidentiality. And then
we'll know it all in 2 months. So that's.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I mean, that's cool, like, right? Like, that's fun, and that's exciting.
And then I also invited MJ to be on the show. If they ever want to be on the show, we'd love to have them.
I want to have
extend that
MJ on the show because I want to have a Timmy week. I just need to figure out. I just need to figure out like 2 or 3 other things to do on a Timmy week other than just an episode. But it's been in my back of my head that if we could like once per year do Timmy, Johnny, Spike episodes. And I feel like the Spike episode would literally just be us as the bookends on somebody else's episode, right? Like that's what I'd really love to do is just, here, like just be like, hey, Force Unlimited as like kind of like an April Fool's intro to somebody else's podcast that actually covers Spike stuff and not us. But, you're such a Johnny and I'm such a Timmy that I felt like doing these weeks would be good. And MJ, my understanding is they're the resident Timmy on the design team.
That was my understanding from talking to them as well. So
and I'd love to, I just need 2 or 3 other things to do. But I desperately, it was great having Ryan. It was great talking to Tyler and Alicia. But my next desired guest is MJ, purely because it would be nice to have somebody who will remind you that life value has value intrinsically, and that just slamming down large cards is inherently fun. They don't actually have to further any objective. They're big. And because they're big, they're good, and that's it. Like you can draw a box around that.
Listen, I felt a palpable the energy entering my body when I saw Lethal Crackdown. Right, like I can pay life and remove cards.
Yeah,
sign me up.
No, no. It's a bad feeling, Ned. Right, like that's a bad feeling, and you should reject it. So. Let's jump to the meat and potatoes of our episode. So this episode is entitled "All I Want for Christmas is SWU," and Ned and I
sing it. You got to sing it. You got to do the Mariah Carey thing.
You got to do the Mariah Carey thing.
All I want for Christmas is SWU.
See, and you think that Ned's the left-brained guy and I'm the right-brained guy, and because of our professions, but you would be wrong. So Ned and I are just in theory we say Christmas, but we're really talking about 2025. My wife and I every other year-ish send out New Year's letters, and we always structure them as New Year's letters because we're procrastinators. And so if we were to send them out on time, our Christmas letters on time, they'd be Christmas letters. But we plan ahead. We know ourselves. So if we send out a little card that says Happy New Year with photos of our family or whatever, then the fact that we don't ship them till like December 23rd means they arrive on time. They're there for New Year's, first week of New Year's. We're awesome. So
that's thinking.
Right? Yeah. You gotta lean into your weaknesses, right? There's an argument to be made that one should improve oneself, but one should also accept one's limitations. So, by way of Christmas, or in my house Hanukkah, or in your house whatever it is, let's say Happy New Year's. Let's talk about 3 things that we're hoping to see out of SWU that we want selfishly. These are not predictions. These are wish lists. You and I both have children, so you and I are currently neck deep in wish lists. This year Hanukkah kicks off on Christmas Day, so that means it's a rough scene. Like Christmas, it's really like so the 12 days of Christmas, Like, I'm sorry, D-House, I know that you think it leads up to, but actually the 12 Days of Christmas kicks off at Christmas and then keeps going. So that's actually true for our household this year. Christmas kicks off on the 25th, and then we have to come up with 8 more nights of gifts for our kids. It's brutal. So we are neck deep in wish list territory. Ned, what is the first item on your SWU wish list?
I wish that Worlds is going to be a fun and successful event. I mean, we're both going, so I'm committed to playing.
Hold on a second,
something.
Ned.
Yeah.
Like, really? You and I didn't prep these. Low-hanging fruit? You just want, like, good cheer?
I mean, I don't know, man.
I'm going to call it right now, Ned. Vegas is going to be a banger. Like, we are booked into a hotel with 1 million SWU nerds, and, like, it's going to be morning to night SWU. It's going to be so much fun. That present is granted, Ned, because even though it's going to be sweltering heat,
God,
I mean, I've never been to Vegas. Yeah, right?
Oh, God. I mean,
my wife I've never been to Vegas. My wife's never been to Vegas.
I've never been to Vegas.
And she was like, I was like, I'm willing to take more time off of work and we could go down together before or after and actually be a couple and like enjoy Vegas together. And you could see in her eye there's this element of temptation. And then she realized, wait, it's in like late July, like the end of July, like in the desert, so it's a good thing that we're connected to the Venetian by way of a sky bridge. We will never have to set foot outdoors except for to get into our Uber to and from the airport.
I would just instantly melt. Like as a gentleman of size, I have zero ability to tolerate the heat. I just sweat endlessly. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to share a room with you. So, yeah, no, I think that's I'm excited for Vegas. Having never been, I've never really. I mean, PAX West was the first time I've traveled for a card game, but there was a limited SWU pool there.
Yes.
Galactics is just going to be a lot, and I know he doesn't work for the company anymore, but I'm holding Josh Massey to his promise. I cannot wait to see what is in store for day 2 side events because I feel like I am fast tracking to day 2 side events. Ned, I assume I'll see you. No offense, Ned. I'll see you on day 3 side events, but I'm really counting on you to make it to day 2, like to uphold our brand.
I feel reasonably confident that I can make it to day 2.
I mean, my understanding is you really only need to have like a winning record. You just need to like on day 1 win more games than you lose, and so
I feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah. So
I got to get my reps in, but yeah. How about you, Parker? What's your first wish?
So my wish is that. How do I phrase this? I wrote down no fun cards.
No fun cards.
I wish that there were fewer no fun cards. So let me. And maybe this is my own naivete, playing a game for the first time really competitively. I played Netrunner and competitively, but other than that, I really haven't played any card game competitively ever. And Netrunner is inherently a game because of the face down nature. The cards are played. So many cards are played face down. And the bluffing mechanism, it's a different game. But for a throw dudes at other dudes game, I was optimistic because Star Wars Unlimited was like so focused on units, right? The percentage of the decks that are just dudes on a board who run at other dudes and die. I expected there to be a lot more of that, but at the competitive level, there feels. I mean, so much of the meta so far has felt it's dominated either by control, which is complete denial, right? Like the level of denial already here, like I can't imagine what it's like to play Magic, and I'm expressing my own ignorance here, so don't at me if I'm wrong. But like the level of denial already, if I play a card, no. I play another card, no. I play a card, no, is already pretty high. And then you get into like mid-range, and so much of mid-range is dominated by like it's Han and yellow decks and my girl Ray. But there's so much yellow in mid range, and yellow is just denial, and then you're dead before tempo is just denial now, and I'll pay for it later. But if I kill you before I have to pay for it, then it's just denial.
Yeah, just bounce.
And so then it becomes more efficient denial, right? If I, like it's 4 to kill something with 5 or less health, it's 3 to bounce anything, and then I murder you before you play it again, like that. So I feel like the game has already an aggressive amount of nope, and I'm okay with that as long as it ebbs and flows, right? Like my understanding from reading Magic articles for the last 30 years, even though I don't actually. Can we say that statement? Is that rounding up?
Yeah.
Has it been 30 years?
Yeah.
Is this like the 30th anniversary? I don't actually follow that closely.
I think it came out in 1992, so I think that we're 2 years. We're at the 32nd.
Well, I haven't been reading the articles for 30 years because I didn't have the money to subscribe to the Duelist. But I've been reading for articles for 20 years.
Yeah.
Is that there's ebbs and flows, and some metas are incredibly negative and just like all nope, and some metas are pure dudes. Star Wars Unlimited is a pure dudes game, and we already have a lot of nope, and so I'm hoping that maybe like the all space unit can segue into just dudes, like just lots of units and less nope, because I feel like I love playing at a more casual level. I love playing at Twin Suns. It feels like how limited is great because it feels how the way the game kind of is meant to be played. You're trying to play chess, right? And you get into the competitive level, and there's just so much nope. So my hope for 2025 is some combination of nope. Yeah.
I mean, to talk to that a little bit more, and I know not the point of this is to express our wishes and not to go too deep. I think part of that is the lack of threat on low-end threats, right? Like the biggest answer to nope is, because the way that most of the nope is costed is kind of to go wide, right? Like if you're playing Waylay on your 3-resource turn, and I'm playing like a 2 and a 1, then that's not good, right? And similarly, if you're spending like your 4 to answer me, and theoretically, the third set was supposed to provide a lot more like go wide and trying to reduce the effectiveness of these 1-for-1 answers, but I don't think that it was quite cost effective enough for a lot of the units.
Played a couple coordinate decks in my I'm taking every set. I try to go visit as many of the Portland SWU stores as I can, and so I kicked off Twilight. I've been going to Guardian Games, and I adore Guardian Games as a store. I want to be very clear, and I adore the people who work there, and I adore the people who play there. The pool of people at Guardian right now is aggressively good. I think is a fair statement. It is at this point. It is, I'd say, half really good people, including like the Shadows PQ winner, and a lot of people who just can give them a run for their money, and about half people who are like in a circle with them. It's a great, unbelievably friendly, welcoming, inviting group of people, but they are very good. And I have been going 1 and 2 and 0 and 3 the last couple of times, and there's only so many times I can do that before I'm like, okay, I'm out of my league, and I want to get into that league. So I've been circling around to some. I was like, now seems a good time to just, so that I don't get bitter, so that I don't get angry. I'm gonna go take 3-4 weeks and go visit all the other stores in Portland, as I try to do once per set. And so I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go see if I can play somebody with a softer talent pool, like more on par with myself, right? And I sat down across from a gentleman just the other day, and he brings out Rex, and I was like, I found it, like, right? Because here we are, because like again, this is my anger about green, and especially Green Hero, is that like, I mean, he's not typo, but it's just this. It relies on this idea of this coordinate keyword that coordinate is powerful if your opponent doesn't do anything about it, but it's so easy to do something about it. This is a game. This is a Magic where like you can
choose not to block.
Choose not to block.
This is an attacker chooses.
Attacker chooses. You just pivot to, your cards are all busted if you have 3 or more units on board. I'm just not going to let you have 3 or more units. Maybe Sabine can't, have the liberty of that. But even though I'm like a mid-range, Cad Bane is red is mid-range that kind of is often in a segues into the beatdown. Like, yep, in theory I'm the beatdown, but I'm just going to sit here and never let you have more than one unit on the board, because then half the cards in your deck have a keyword that is blank, right?
Yep.
And so, I want go wide. When I first saw Coordinator, I was like, oh, they're going to do something about allowing big wide boards, but we didn't see it materialize. Twilight rewards big wide boards, but there wasn't really a lot that
it doesn't enable it. Yeah. And there's enough like waiting in the wings that even if you do kind of go wide, you're not. Yeah. Anyway, not story for another time.
Yeah.
My second wish.
Your second wish.
My second wish. More weird stuff. So I love Palp 3, and I think that nobody has been able, or nobody is maybe a strong term, but like people look at him and the little wheels go in their brain, and my boy GI also does that, right? Where these are leaders that explicitly reward you playing cards that you wouldn't otherwise play. Right, like GI, you want units that have more than 3, that have 3 or more health, 3 or less power, and are good to turn sideways. Right, like what is the number of units that exist that meet those criteria? Palp wants this weird blend of units that's going to enable him to like flip. Ideally, you're seeing value every turn. I don't quite think he's there yet because I don't think he has quite the density of like on cheap ambushing threats to get like the things going and to get his engine restarted when it gets shut off, but more stuff that forces you to reprice how things cost and like what cards are good and what the available card pool is by having leader abilities that aren't just like typo, that aren't just like does sets keyword, does a thing with the sets keyword, aren't just like stats on a stick, but will pay you off for doing weird stuff.
I think you're going to get there in 2025, and I'll tell you why. When we interviewed Tyler, the level of we hadn't really even seen previews for. We'd seen set 2, or set 3. We had seen some of set 3, but we hadn't seen set 4 yet. We had seen the names, but the level of excitement Tyler had for set 6, and he
That's
pitched
Secrets of Power.
Yeah, and he said basically he asked if he could do something, and he didn't think they'd say yes, and they said yes. That tells me it's weird, right? Like that I don't know what that is. We have no idea what that is, but the way he seemed excited about that he got away with something tells me it's weird, right? And I have to assume, I'll wager Ned a box of donuts that in 2025 we see cards that have 2 non-morality aspects.
Bam.
And as somebody who elected to sort his cards by colored binder, I'm not excited about that. But in terms of like a Johnny-ness, I think that's going to be really exciting, right? Like that'll open up a lot. All right, my second one, and this is not in the Christmas spirit. It's a little negative. I would like in 2025 the promise of organized play to be fulfilled, and I not even the aspirational kind of marketing promises, but the actual things they said would happen. And I feel like there's been we're coming up on a year since Josh Massey left, and I feel like we have I get it. Bus factor is hard. It's something that my team is struggling with at work right now. How do you there's no money to be made in having multiple people solve problems, but the problem is when the person who solves that problem leaves, the two kind of like key symptoms for me. I'm not even talking about that there was a stream and we had a PQ. We're gonna have more PQs. We're gonna have galactics, and there was a map with like and a stream with like regionals and sectors, and there was a whole conversation about width versus depth and points and things. I don't care about any of that. But showdowns were supposed to happen in the first month. And they did it in Shadows, and they're not happening in Twilight. And as a father, as a parent, like, I can't take a lot of weekends off in a row. Like, I have to pick and choose when I take weekends off. And I'm missing out. I didn't go to a Shadow Showdown, and I couldn't because I needed time to do between PAX West and our PQ. Like, the idea, you know, like, and because Pacific Northwest PQs were leading right into the pre-release when I want to do pre-release, like, pre-release plus our PQ was back-to-back weekends. So, like, you know, like, and the showdowns were all crammed right up there as well. And already, like, I remember Josh Massey. I'm saying his name a lot tonight, but whatever. I remember the stream with him where he's like, the idea was showdowns would happen in the first month because people were still figuring out the set, and this was a chance for people to have like a fun, casual, you know, pinky toe in the water of competitive play. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing showdowns towards the end of the set, and that means, you know, if you have other hobbies and other obligations, that's like, you can't do showdowns and PQs. And even though I'm more likely to do well at a showdown than I am at a PQ, like, I'm going to the PQ, right? Like, that's where the real heart of the game is. And likewise, you know, I think I've been blessed going to Guardian. Guardian is where we had our PQ, and they are clearly connected. They always have organized play packs, but I've now been to a couple other stores, and if they have them, they're giving out like set 1, set 2 organized play packs. They can't get their hands on Twilight organized play packs. I was at a store that had, they said, my understanding, I wasn't there for their pre-release, but they said they ordered 32 pre-releases, and they sold 32 pre-releases. So they had 32 people come to their pre-release, and they only had one, and they can't get Twilight OP packs. And in theory, they've like, I mean, if they, you know, you sell 32, there's clearly you have a community that's ready to play, and and you know, I was caught off guard because they warned me about this when I walked in, and I spent the whole night playing. My brain was fried, and I get to the end and I open a pack, and I was like, "No, I am your father." And I was like, you know, what? Like, you know, it took me a moment to process. Oh wait, I just opened a Sparker Rebellion organized play pack. So like, and my understanding was, you know, I mean, I get it. Logistics are hard. And that's fair, but at the same time, you know, as a human being with empathy, I understand that logistics are hard. And as a consumer, I'm like, I don't care, right? Like, I would like to go to a store, and I'd like to go to a store that has a vibrant Star Wars Unlimited community. I can do those things, and I'd like to be able to open a pack of Twilight OP cards, and we can't. And the fact that the Twilight OP packs are just silver, they don't even have like even the printed name of Twilight of the Republic on them. They're just silver. Tells me that like maybe they were rushed or something. You know, I don't know what's going on. But again, human being with empathy, I don't know what's going on. I respect blah blah blah. Consumer, I don't care. As a consumer, I would really like for the not the marketing, oh, we're going to have regionals, and that's the thing that we haven't described yet. There'll be more about that, and we'll have sectors, and that's the thing we haven't described yet. I don't care about that. But the things that were actually promised, you will go to your community, and you will collect, connect, and compete. And you will be able to get these packs. I remember Tyler saying, you just go and you can, you know, trade cards with your binder, and you still get one of these 3-card packs. But, like, the store doesn't have the 3-card packs. And no. You know, I'm looking at the Portland schedule of showdowns, and I'm probably not going to swing one. Maybe. I'd say 50-50 just on where it sits with the Portland and Seattle PQ. Like, what I want in 2025, and my understanding is Asmodee now has, I forget the name that Ashley gave us, but we now have somebody who's kind of dedicated to organized play. We don't see them on stream because they're not out of Minnesota, but it's like, I hope they get it, you know, once they get their feet under them, once they get their sea legs, I would like to see some results. I would like to see the promise fulfilled in 2025 of organized play. Ned, I hope your 3, I hope we should have coordinated so that your 3 could be the Christmas cheer one that was really on the up note, because let's go.
No,
go out on high.
my third is a Christmas cheer. I'm here. I'm feeling the Christmas spirit. My third is, this is from the deepest part of my heart. Let me pay base health to draw cards. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what. I want to be able to pay life to draw cards. That, like, I'm a man with simple desires. I want to be able to sacrifice my units and get value. You've seen some of that. Could do more, but, like, I'm not going to complain. And want to be able to pay life to draw cards. Let me pay life to draw
Ned, you are
cards.
such a sweet man, and, like, I feel like you just live out your fantasy of being evil in tabletop. Like, that's how you express any, like, hate that is in your heart.
110%. Like, I grew up in a household where I played Sauron, right? Like, my dad was a real Lord of the Rings aficionado, but he would always play the Free Peoples, and I would always play Sauron, and I've just grown to appreciate. Let me throw in my units and get value. Let me pay life and draw cards. Let me just smash and be a horrible monster, because I am a gentle human being otherwise, and if I don't get to
You and I have been playing tabletop role-playing games. You and I have been playing tabletop role-playing games for about 8 years now. And
something like that, yeah. 8-9 years, yeah. It's been, yeah.
And I have zero interest in villainy campaigns. I reliably run games where it's like, okay, rule number 1, you're all big damn heroes. Like, you all, like, save the day. You all do good things. I don't want to get into torturing people. Like, I don't want to get into, like, this is what my character would do. And time again, you come to the table with, okay, so this is how my guy was once evil. This is how my guy was once a jerk. Like, you know, like, you know.
I meet the brief. They're all nice now. They're
all nice.
Yeah, they're nice now.
Yeah, it's. I'm starting to see a theme. Yeah, I mean, I think the game's just going to keep growing in complexity, and especially constructed, right? Like, limited, clearly they have a cap on the complexity they're willing to put into limited.
As well they should, right? Like, but that's the point of limited, right? Yeah.
But constructed, especially, is going to get into weird. I'm excited because jump to light speed means you're now really going to have to ask, like, I mean, Imperial, you know, Tarkin space is a thing that Boba did slightly better, maybe, but now you're getting into, like, okay, I think at every premiere event, how much space is there going to be? Like, you know, and that's something you're really going to have to tech for. You're going to appreciate this, Ned. I was really proud of this.
What you got? What's this coal that you have for the
Oh, no. This is
okay.
You're going to appreciate this. I think this is clever. I wrote down poison.
Poison.
And it's because I'm sneaking in 2 items because I'm always greedy. But they're thematically poison. 1, I would like to see some High Republic, which, you know, like, if you've been on Twitter, like, seems to just, like, bring out the worst in people, but I'm a huge fan. I've got a bunch of, you know, I'm not even, like, limiting myself to Young Jedi Adventures. That's my dream, but I don't think it's going to happen in 2025. I'd like it to happen, is to get some Young Jedi Adventures cards. You know, everybody who talks to me on Discord knows I'm a huge Nubs fan. But any High Republic, it's such a huge cornerstone of, like, Disney's push up to and through the Acolyte. We'll see how they pivot, you know, post Acolyte reception. But like, the High Republic has now a huge amount of material, and we've seen, like, hints of, like, the Resistance and the New Republic. You know, I want to see every, you know, we were promised every corner. And so for me, one thing I want to see is corners that we haven't seen, right? So, like, I don't really care about Legends, but if people want to do it, great. Old Republic, great, fine. But what I really want is the High Republic. Just one card traded High Republic, right? Like, that's so. And then the other thing is, I'd really love to see an alternative victory condition. I feel like that is a litmus test for when a CCG has arrived, right? Like, I always think about Dave Grohl talking about when they found out Weird Al was going to cover Nirvana, like, they knew they had arrived. They were excited because that's how they kind of did the litmus test. I feel like one of the litmus tests for a CCG is, when do you have an alternative win condition? When do you have a card that lets you win other than running an opponent down to 30 life, you know? And Twin Suns being a first-class citizen means it gets interesting where they have to, if you have one opponent type shenanigans.
Yeah.
But I'd really love to see a card so named, if you're not familiar, dear listener, because the original alternate victory condition in Magic the Gathering was called Poison Counters, which if you somebody's going to at me and it turns out that a Test of Will or whatever it is.
No, Battle of Wills was
Battle of Wills.
Yeah.
Was that after Poison Counters? Poison Counters was pretty
That
early.
was after. That was after.
So I think Poison Counters was the first alternative win condition in Magic. Pop quiz, Ned. You should know this.
Depends on what you mean by win. So Scheherazade started in Arabian Nights, started a sub game.
Yeah, I remember that card. I played that card.
Yeah, there were some anti-cards in the first set that basically told your opponent lose or anti another card, so it depends on whether you count those as like alternate victory conditions.
No, but I do remember all of the cards that specifically were about anti.
Divine Intervention in Antiquities would end the game in a draw in 2 turns. So you would just
no. I'm not going to accept those. I'm going to stand by Poison Counters in Magic the Gathering.
And then I think it is because I think that you had creatures that dealt poison damage.
There was really one. The first card is Pit Viper that did instead of doing damage, it would do when it attacked an opponent, it would give them a poison counter, and if an opponent had 10 poison counters,
10 or more,
they lost. The game, and I would, and you've seen that come out in a number of, basically most TCGs inevitably reach a point where it's, here's a thing to do that's harder than win the game, and if you do it, you win the game. And they are impossible to balance because, like if you make it too easy, then people will do that instead, and that's what the game is about. But they immediately crack open, the Johnny mind. How can I, forget, here's my combo that will lead to victory. It's how do I achieve this weird victory? So poison is my wish for 2025. Either both High Republic or some new corner. I'll take pretty much any new corner, but really High Republic. And an alternative win condition. I'd love to try to win the game not by crushing my opponent.
All right. And Mill isn't good enough for you.
That's fair. And I'll accept Mill as an alternative win condition when somebody wins 1K with a deck designed for Mill. Yeah. I'm sure somebody's won a 1K by milling because that's how control decks exist. Control versus control matches inevitably. But we haven't seen, I think, a competitive deck whose goal is to mill everybody. It's not like... Mill is a burn style deck, right? Where you are just trying to burn your opponent out of cards rather than burning them out of life. Right. Mill is something that you are aware of in a control versus control matchup, and you are either trying to mitigate your own mill or accelerate your opponents in that matchup. But if you're playing, Kira or Ida Inversio, you are not trying to mill a Sabine deck.
No.
Right. Like that's not how you're trying to win. So. I'd accept a mill, but that's not printed on a card. The fact that they built that into the rules makes that a primary win condition. It is a rules supported. It was not introduced by way of a card.
All right, so you did also avoid my trap because if you had accepted mill, I would have pointed out that the first alternate victory condition was also present in Magic at the start of the mill victory condition.
Yeah, no, I think the fact that you have to add it by way of card. Here is this other thing you should do is what makes an alternative victory condition. So with that, dear listener, and Ned, do you have anything else for us tonight?
Not as such, other than...
With that, dear listener, I will add, because I'm super greedy,
Whoa!
a fifth wish, and that is that we see you in Vegas. I am going to Vegas. Ned is going to Vegas, and Ned and I are not travel to tabletop convention guys, and not for CCGs. And we are going to Vegas to make a big deal out of it, and we are genuinely hoping. I am genuinely hoping, dear listener, to see as many of you as we can there. And given if you listen to us, you probably like weird stuff. And that's not a Vegas comment. That's not a Vegas comment. That's a SWU comment. But come find us on day 2 and 3, especially when the heat is off and now you get to do some weird Twin Suns limited event that they've structured, and you are trying to score points in some sealed shenanigans to get points on a prize wall because, you know, making the top 32 playmat was never going to happen for you, and you know it, and I know it because it wasn't never going to happen for me. Like, if you're listening to the show, you're probably in that pool. Come find us. What I genuinely want in 2025 is to meet more. Like, I'm constantly surprised every time you and I go out in public, the number of people who do listen to us. I think the fact that we link directly from the front page of Sweetie Bee means that maybe not as many people subscribe. And so I feel like our number count is probably, you know, people don't need a reminder, right? If you're into the game, we will tell you when there's a new episode. But that is the end of this episode, dear listener. Again, this is episode number 26 on December 15th. We will see you again before the new year or at the new year. But that is all for this episode. If you have any thoughts about the episode, please email us at theforceunlimited@gmail.com. Ned, do you have any final thoughts about this episode?
I have one other wish I've realized for next year, and that is, Parker, that we continue to do the show together as good friends and as SWU buddies.
Yeah, I will. If not, we'll start a new podcast on something else. I will always talk to you about Tabletop Ned. With that, dear listener, we will see you in a few weeks. Happy holidays.
Adios.